The U.S. has seized a Russian-flagged vessel in the North Atlantic linked to Venezuelan oil.
Washington says the tanker, named the Marinera, is a Venezuelan shadow fleet vessel that transported sanctioned oil. Reports say the vessel was empty when it was seized between the British Isles and Iceland. British Defence Secretary John Healey said the UK supported the US operation as part of what he describes as an effort to crack down on shadow shipping activities.
The Bella One was falsely flagged. It was falsely flagged and subject to US counter-Iran sanctions. This is a sanctioned, stateless vessel which carries a long history of nefarious activity and shares close links with both Iran and Russia.
U.S. officials say the seized vessel was previously known as the Bella One. U.S. forces tried to board a 300-meter-long ship in December when it was flying the flag of Guyana. But the ship had refused to be boarded and had switched to Russia's flag. It was eventually seized after a week-long pursuit. Russia has condemned the seizure, calling it a violation of international maritime law. Its state TV said Moscow was closely monitoring the situation.
The White House has brushed off concerns that the move risks larger conflict with Moscow, calling the operation an enforcement of its embargo on dark fleet vessels. U.S. forces also intercepted a second tanker carrying Venezuelan oil in the Caribbean Sea. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called the seizures a part of Washington's three-step plan for Venezuela.
As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and, in fact, about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting.
Now, the Trump administration has said it needs to control Venezuelan oil sales indefinitely to drive change.
And to help us understand what's been happening, Eric Farnsworth is a senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and a former U.S. State Department official as well. Eric, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. So we know the U.S. seized the Bella One, new flag, new name and all, in the Atlantic, I should say. I guess, the question is, why is it doing so despite a formal request from Moscow not to? And there were Russian vessels nearby as well. It seems as though this is unnecessary in terms of risking outright confrontation with the Russians.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join you. It is, I think, consistent with the Trump administration's view that in order to really bring lasting transition to Venezuela, they need to really have access to the financing that the oil sales would provide so that those finances can be provided to the Venezuelan people and not stolen by the regime. And so the seizure of the ships, these are ghost ships, these are sanctioned ships flying under a false flag, is consistent with that to make sure that Venezuelan crude and those vessels that transport it are unable to get it to the market. So I think that's what's behind this. And it's unfortunate that the ship owners tried to reflag with a Russian flag. That was unnecessary, but it certainly is consistent with their behavior to date.
Okay, so if this was to send a strong signal to Russia or other sanctions busters, or those relying on shadow fleets and flag hopping, will it actually work as a deterrent or just raise the stakes?
Well, I think both of those things. It does raise the stakes, no question, because Russia is now involved, and I don't know what specifically Russia is prepared to do in retaliation, but they certainly are now implicated in the issues. But I also think it is a deterrent effect. What we've seen is ships turn around who were heading to Venezuela. We've seen other ships remain in port and not try to leave or break through the embargo. And it's clearly having a deterrent effect. It's also raising the costs of shippers in terms of insurance, in terms of the discount that they have to give internationally on the crude that they may be carrying, because the risk has gone up and the risk premium has increased dramatically, and therefore the costs have increased as well. But will it be a 100% lockdown total embargo? I'm not sure that we can say that at this point, particularly if a number of ships band together and try to run the blockade. I don't know that the U.S. Navy has the number of assets that would be required in the region to take all of them. But we'll have to see how that works and how it develops going forward.
Yeah, still early days. But Eric, we heard from Secretary Rubio announcing that three-step plan for Venezuela: stabilization, economic access, and political transition. What do you see as the biggest obstacles to make that plan work on the ground?
Well, there are huge obstacles. I was very pleased that the secretary laid out the plan and discussed it in some detail. I think that's a positive step forward. Clearly, keeping stability in the country is the first aspect of this, which is to say, making sure that the streets are relatively safe, that crime does not balloon, that there aren't looting and chaos in the streets. That's something we saw after Iraq. It's something we saw after Panama in 1989. I think the administration wants to make sure that they secure the environment for the people of Venezuela. But that's also one of the primary obstacles, because in order to transition to democracy, you have to have stability in the country. And so the question is, what is enough stability to be able to begin that transition process? And I think we also have to remember that Caracas is not the only part of Venezuela. Caracas is the major city, of course, in the north part of the country, but Venezuela is a very large country, and much of it is unsettled. It's unoccupied in terms of cities, but there are any number of illegal groups that operate in the country: Colombian guerrillas, illegal drug traffickers, miners, that sort of thing. And so it's one thing to pacify Caracas, perhaps, but pacifying the country is another issue. So these are some of the things that have to be worked through, discussed, and they have to come up with a real solution in terms of how to maintain that stability.
Right, Eric, the U.S. has made two demands which stand out to me. One, of course, is that exclusive partnership with Venezuela on oil production. The other, demanding that Caracas sever ties with allies, China, Iran, Russia, and also Cuba. So I'm wondering, can an interim leader, whether it's Delcy Rodriguez or someone else, agree to both of this and still retain the support of Venezuela's internal power brokers?
Well, I think this is a very important question that you're raising. Those are two demands that the United States has made, and they are putting the burden of execution on Delcy Rodriguez, who until Friday evening was the vice president for Nicolas Maduro, and she clearly is fully invested in the success of the Maduro regime. So now she has to turn immediately 180 degrees. And I think there's a question of whether she's fully committed to delivering. And I think there's an equally important question whether she is capable of delivering, because as you say, there are other factions within the Bolivarian movement. The head of the military, the head of the secret police are both still there, many others who have been there for many years. And so the question is, can she deliver even if she wants to? We'll have to see. But the demand of reducing or eliminating the relationship with Cuba, with Russia, and reducing the economic relationship with China. These are some of the issues that have rankled Washington for a long time, Venezuela's relationship with what they consider bad actors. And so they want to get that, they want to change that.
Understood. I want to, press you a bit about China as well. We know it's invested heavily in Venezuela's oil industry. You briefly mentioned China just now. Is Beijing going to quietly accept, the losses in terms of what it's put in, and also, of course, the loss of a key Latin American ally?
Well, they aren't quietly accepting it. We've already heard statements from the foreign ministry and others. They're clearly agitated by this. But I think there is a pragmatic issue in terms of what can they do to reverse it. They're losing deliveries of oil from Venezuela, that's right, that's used to amortize the debt that Venezuela maintains with China. But even more importantly, you've already suggested that Venezuela is a key ally and has been for 25 or more years with China, and really a foothold into the region. If the governance changes under United States tutelage, I think we can assume that the relationship with China will shift fundamentally, and I think that's absolutely a key goal of Washington. The question, of course, what will China do to resist that or try to reverse it? I have to say, I don't think there's a whole lot that they can do specifically with reference to Venezuela. Now, Latin America is a large place, and they might reevaluate some of their relations with other countries in Latin America, but it does seem that the relationship that they've invested in for so long and so heavily in Venezuela may be changing, and they may have to accept some losses in that particular relationship.
Okay, and Eric, before we let you go, we know that the U.S. has a long history of pursuing regime change from Iran, Guatemala to Afghanistan and Iraq, often achieving some short-term successes, but without a clear political endgame. How confident are you that it'll be different at this time around?
Well, I'm trying to be optimistic about this, but we've already talked about some very important obstacles that face everybody. But I do believe in the resiliency of the Venezuelan people. I believe in the leadership of Maria Corina Machado, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, to inspire the people. And I think if given the opportunity to succeed, they'll take that. There's a very entrepreneurial spirit among the people, many outside the country who are itching to return to help redevelop their country. So yes, the obstacles are there, but we have to maintain an optimism and a hope. And if that continues, then I do think Venezuela will come out of this. But it's going to be a long road. And to be honest with you, it's not guaranteed. It could go sideways very quickly. So it's worth very careful watch in the days and weeks ahead.
Indeed, Eric. Thank you so much for your time this morning. That was Eric Farnsworth, a senior advisor at the CSIS and former U.S. State Department official.